Yeah. Welcome everyone. A little crooning there by Juan at the start. Welcome to a Mere Mortals Meandering session. It is your boy, Kyron, on the mic.
Welcome back, everybody. Juan over here.
Juan on the other side.
It's your boy. It's Juan.
It's your other boy. And we are doing a meandering session, so there's a deep conversation with a lighthearted touch focused on the lighthearted. I've got a couple of roundup tips. We're into the new year now.
We are, 2022.
Slightly pre-recording.
Does it feel weird talking about 2022?
Nah. Honestly, like the numbers of 2020, 2021, 22, they're way too similar in my head. So I've sort of
given up the
I'm just giving up in life. Yeah.
Are we? Do you foresee? Here's an interesting question straight off the bat. Do you foresee a reenactment of the Roaring '20s? So the Roaring '20s, for all intents and purposes, was back in the day. This is pre-World War One. Everything was going right with the economy across the world. Everything was pumping. We were coming through to Industrial Revolution, everything, a lot of good successes and wins came out of the 1880s, 1890s. So stuff was going pretty well. Thoughts? Are we going to get back to the Roaring '20s?
I'd say we'll look back.
Pre-World War One or post-World War?
No, it's post-World War One.
Post-World War One. Sorry, post-World War One.
World War One was 1914 and 1918. So
there's after we all decided to almost kill each other. We decided, okay, let's prosper. Let's become better.
Yeah. Well,
there's after the Spanish flu.
I mean, I guess it'll be tainted with the COVID stuff. Although it's COVID-19, so maybe we can get away with it. But probably like the first half will be COVID tainted. Okay. But then I think the second half will be like we'll
really kick it again.
It'll be a pretty wild time.
I was just going to say, like, reflecting back on 21, looking to 22, but genuinely excited what I think is going to come in 27, 28, 29. Those sort of years and 20s, I'll go, oh man, I reckon there's going to be some fun stuff. One of the things, I know you haven't listened to it, but of people who might have or who might not have, Elon was in a conversation.
I think I got to that
cool.
part.
So Elon had a conversation.
5 to 10 years, right?
Yeah, 5 to 10 years. So Elon had a conversation with Lex Friedman, and one of the questions that Lex posed was, when do you foresee that we're going to be in Mars? When's a human going to step on Mars? And again, Elon thought about it long and hard. Did you enjoy those pauses? They were long.
I think I even skipped one of them with 15-second skips.
Yeah, and you could still hear the pause. But in any case, he came out with a 5 to 10 years. So 5 of the best case of we would see humans on Mars, according to his sort of predictions. And I went, damn, that could be in the Roaring '20s. We could see a human land on Mars. Obviously that and whatever else comes along the line. I think, COVID aside, I think there's been a lot of inventions and ideas and innovations that came out of it. And I think one, it propagated a lot of this thought process of cryptocurrency and decentralized idea thinking and blah, 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 etc. But I feel when that kind of subsides, there's going to be just this continued idea stream that's going to come out of the 20s and be like, oh yeah, this is going to be cool. Like, I'm glad I'm this age at the start of these, this particular couple of next 10 years. I reckon it's going to be, we're in the right place, like a good balance of having a platform / having some money / having some time and energy at this right moment. I don't know. Do you often sometimes go and think about it? Well, you might not. I do. Of, oh man, if only I was this age in the 2000s, like in the early 2000s, I would have just either made so much money or I would have been in the right position. That's me thinking, obviously looking back and imagining that I would be so forward thinking of going to social media or whatever.
Yeah.
But I go, I just didn't have the opportunity then, but maybe this is it. Do you ever think like that?
Nah. I live in my own time. I think it would be fun to experience what the disco era was like, or the free love era, or even the conditions leading up to the world wars, what that was like. But I don't ever put myself in that time and think I'll thrive in it. No.
Gotcha,
Probably because I'm not thriving in my own time.
Probably because you're not thriving in your own time.
There's no confidence.
There's no thriving anywhere. Yeah, okay.
I'm not so sure about the social media. I mean, you were of the age where it could have become addictive. Like, all the influences, like the biggest ones, they're all roughly our age, right? Or slightly...
Yeah, I just think that me personally, of who I am and maybe the growth trajectory that I had at the time Facebook came out. So I got to remember, when Facebook Facebook in particular came out, I would have been...
grade 10, right?
2007. Right. So yeah, we were grade 10. I still wasn't in the spectrum of, let's say, we weren't popular by any means. I think at that point I had English, but it wouldn't be like I would be pristine with the quality of speaking or posting things. In fact, I remember seeing my first ever post on Facebook in 2009, and they were like woeful. So there was no way I was becoming some sort of famous person or influencer.
What does woeful mean?
Oh, you know where Facebook back in the day we used to say, one is thinking, or one is doing, or something to that effect. Yeah,
just something strange.
Mine would be things like looking up in the sky and the cloud. I think the cloud looks like a rainbow. Some stupid thing like that. Like you know, things that your younger self thinks it's like, oh yeah, that's clever.
The world needs to know this. Yeah,
man, nobody needs to know this crap. So, and in any case, I just think maybe me of today, back in the day, I would have put in some. If social media was beginning today, I think I could see the forward horizon of how it could be used or extrapolated into businesses. Kind of like how right now I could tell you and think of how, let's say, NFTs could be expanded, or the underlying premise behind NFTs could be done for businesses. So I could see that happening in like 10 years. I can think about that right now based on my current thinking. Maybe not. Could I have seen things like that in social media? Maybe not. I just think
humility.
I just think there would have been some knowledge to be applied. But the younger self one, you better believe you better believe there was no way in all of hell that I was going to surmise anything with it.
No, I'd never thought of that. I didn't even know you thought of things like that. So there you go. Interesting. Well, I wanted to bring something up related to stories and maybe even unbelievable, and this can maybe tie in with the Elon stuff. Because like the first thing I thought what went through my brain when I heard 5 years best, 10 years worst was, I don't believe that. That seems so ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know shit about rockets. I don't know shit about space exploration. I've never built a rocket myself, so I will. This
comes with a slice of absolutely knowing nothing.
Yeah, I'll slightly defer. Like one of the things I would just say in support of my argument is that he's kind of notorious for
big bold
claims, which he predicting something and he'll be off target by 3 years, say for example. So that's just one of the reasons where I'm like, okay. He's of course going to talk it up. He's the owner of SpaceX. Yeah. He wants people to be interested, put money into it, have faith in it, etc. But anyway, so this relates to stories, and so I was thinking of there's 3 reasons that brought this up. 2 reasons were books I've read recently. One was the Paul Carter book. I've already forgotten the stupid clickbait title name. Don't tell my mom I work on the rig. She thinks I'm a piano player in a whorehouse. Mm-hmm. Now, aside from the clickbait title, there's a lot of stories in there which are like, fuck off. No way. You blew up a monkey because you put a firework in a coconut, rolled it down the hill, and it chased after it. Or the monkey trapped him in this room, and so he had to like literally rip the door off its hinges to be able to get out. Sort of things like that.
I could believe that.
There's just plenty of things where it's like...
Yeah, there's an amalgamation of stories there that you go, okay, and there's one of these is a little bit like over the top, what to say, and not the other ones are over the top.
So there's that one. There's one I'm currently reading, which is called Nathaniel's Nutmeg, and this was also a Oscar Marie recommendation. Nutmeg. And this is basically, I think it's about the Dutch East India Trading Company. Mm-hmm. So it's about the spice wars, how the British and the Spanish and the Portuguese and the Dutch were all vying for nutmeg, cloves, spices like that, which the rich people would use back in those days to hide the gross flavor of rancid meat and things like that. And also it had, they believed it had medicinal properties. Maybe it still does. I don't know that much about nutmeg, but it would cure headaches, stop bowel movements, stop flatulence, all those sorts of
properties
things.
To it.
Yep. And in some of these stories, that it's explorers going to the India, Philippines, to across the world. They're literally getting on a boat, leaving home, coming back. If they come back 3 years later, and they'll be telling stories about how they met Africans and they were putting blood, tripe and entrails around their necks, eating it raw, and all this shit. And the people back at home were like, "You're full of shit, mate. That never happened. That story's BS." And then they go there themselves and they're like, holy fuck,
this is real.
There's this crazy shit going on. And then the last one was your New Year's Eve, where you did something where I was like, what the fuck, man? What kind of story is that?
If I told you that story at another time and without proof, I think you would have been like, hold on a moment.
Yeah.
This sounds like BS. One BS.
Yeah. And it's not appropriate for the podcast, so I won't get into it. But I've had one or two stories myself where I was like, holy shit, I did this thing, or this thing happened, but it's so hard to believe it. People will think you're bragging. People will think you're full of stuff. So my question was, of all the stories that have been told throughout history, which have been told in the sense of this thing actually happened, how much do you think of it is truth? How much of it is like outright lies, and how much would be a grey area in between where someone has a kernel of truth but they've embellished it? You know, what percentage of stories told throughout all stories told throughout history? So this is sort of asking a question about humanity and our propensity to embellish, or maybe not embellish if you believe we're all straight shooters.
All right, so my belief, and let me just think this through to make sure it's the right one, not a system one telling me that. But no, I would have to say that complete and utter lies. I'm going to put percentages here. Complete and utter lies, where it's just it didn't happen at all, and it's just literally a fictition of someone's sort of mindset or brain power coming out with some idea. 5%.
Okay.
Truth, nothing but the truth, and absolute just pristine exactly what happened. 5%.
Yeah.
And then I would give 90% to grey, of taking the truth and extrapolating it to some degree, not to a full lie, but to some extravagant or otherwise imprecise version of what actually was the truth. And I would say that there's probably a combination of one, just like forgetfulness. I think a majority of that, of like retelling a story and just faulty memory, or let's give the example of jurors or a jury or someone who's going to go witnesses or 5 people. There is a reason they don't grab witnesses, they don't allow witnesses to have conversations pre a jury case or the actual case. It's because you might say, oh yeah, I saw this person and they were
wearing a red coat.
Yeah, they were wearing a red coat, and all of a sudden, even though you can't recall that, it's like put into your memory, and then that's what you say. So I think this, and I'll even go down further. Of the 90%, I'm saying in the grey area, I'm going to say, I'm going to give humanity a little bit here. I'm going to say 50% of the time of that 90%. So if you're doing your maths here, 45%. I'm saying 45% of humanity extrapolate or go beyond the actual truth, but not of their own wanting. It is just a fault of the human coding that we just are forgetful sometimes, or we might just recollect things in an inappropriate way. And then another 45% where you just pull out just a little bit extra just to make it fun. Just like the stories that you were talking about, where it's like, yeah, is that really real, or did you write it in this way just because it would be of interest to more people? Or you thought, like a lot of people do, that, this story is not as interesting, I need to embellish a little, I need to add a little sparkle to it just so that people really care about it.
Yeah, okay.
What about you?
Yeah, no, very similar. I would have, if I have to describe it in a nutshell, I'd say a shifted bell curve. So it's roughly a bell curve, but it's been slightly shifted more towards the believing in humanity, trying to be truthful area. So I would say, reasons people would tell stories. One is they're just straight up psychopaths or manipulators or things like that, and so they'll just tell whatever story, take other people's stories and pass it off as their own, sort of thing like that. Consciously lying and doing that, I think there would be, I'll maybe put a slightly smaller percent, maybe like 2 or 3%, where they're consciously lying and knowing that if gun to head is this 50% more true or 50% less true, like at that border point of saying
more true.
that'd be that. No, it would be they consciously know it's less true. They consciously know. Okay. Then I would say it starts to curve up gradually, where yes, it's sort of built on a lie, but it's also struggling to. It's getting gradually towards more the truth. So there'll be a kernel of truth. So there's a seed of
something there.
There's something happened. They went to they saw a gorilla at the zoo. The gorilla did a backflip. Maybe it didn't do a backflip, but it did some sort of weird movement where it
kind of flopped on its back.
Yeah. So I think there would be parts of that, and then it would get towards, people are telling a story. 75% of it's true, but 25% of it is just. You add extra details, and this is where it's sort of truth but untruth at the same time. The dolphin looked me in the eye, and it had like a magical sparkle. Like I could see the twinkle in its eye.
You could tell it was going to come and be friendly.
Yeah, things like that. And
see,
and
is that an untruth though? Is that realistically not a truth? To a story?
I just want to say embellishment. It's something where it's not a
that's not a known state. That's a known fact of what happened.
Yeah, it's you adding your opinion onto it.
Exactly.
And whilst your opinion might be true and that's what you actually believe, hey, I actually did see that ghost. Hey, I actually whatever. There are certain things where it's like, that's I'm unsure about that.
Well, actually, it's an interesting thing. One of the things I wrote.
Sorry, and then the last bit was that bell curve right at the tippy point. Probably like another 1% of just 2% of people who are super autistic and just they don't even know how to tell a story. It's just they blurt it out. Yeah,
hear the facts.
Yeah.
It's making me think. I posted the article, the one I wrote about Web3 just recently on Twitter and LinkedIn, just get other people's feedback. And one of the things
did you fix up the spelling mistakes?
I did.
Okay, good.
And one of the things I was trying to make clear was, what was it? What was the article? And I went, is it a full detailed experience of what Web3 is? No. Tell you how to get into Web3? No. But then I said, is it a conglomerate of ideas and thoughts with a layer of one added to it? And I was like, yes. And it makes me think, I think in general, storytelling should be based on the truth, on the conglomeration of actual facts and ideas, with a layer of like yourself, like as a human, as if I tell a story versus you telling a story, I think it'd be very different. Again, if we were to tell, if both scenarios had happened on New Year's Eve to each of us, like the same thing had happened, I think the stories we would have retold would have been slightly different, obviously in different ways that we would tell stories, but the stories would still hold the same facts. I think it's when you go, beyond just and can you define the layer between, being told by one or then being told by one and then has some embellishment to it? I think that might be a hard one to split, to be really clear or decisive about. Because you might tell the story, or let's just go to a story that we can talk about. Let's go with the fact that, you dropped me off from the car and then I walked over here. And there was two things that happened. Like, I was sitting kind of out of picture here, just all the way to the right over there. And I was kind of just waiting for someone to come up and have a seat available so we could sit down. As opposed to you kind of coming up and sort of seeing me just sitting down being like, what the hell's going on? Now, I think we could tell the same story. And it could, even if we talked about it so we could get the right details as well. Like, oh, this is what happened. Even retelling the story, we would both tell the facts, but we would both get the layer of our own humanity over the top of it. So is that in the gray zone?
Still be a tinge of me being like, Juan's a lazy shit.
Exactly.
He's not
but there's
set up the cameras.
Is that in the gray zone? Maybe, but I think that's the good gray zone. That's okay. You can tell something, but it's based still on reality plus the added layer of humanity. That's okay. I don't take that as being a bad gray zone. I think the bad gray zone is if you were to say, if I was to say, oh yeah, I had to sit here and Karen was actually actively going slower and took such a long time, and yeah, I just sat here for what seemed like an absolute age. That would be okay. That's an extension of reality of what happened. Okay, that's maybe the bad side of the grey zone of storytelling.
Yeah,
don't do that.
Immortalites. Yeah, well, it's I mean, it's not even a moral judgment on it. I personally, there's a couple of stories. One which was told to me in Airlie Beach, and I had a couple of drinks while this was told. But this dude was a fantastic, probably the best storyteller I've ever heard, and one of the best stories. I can't do it justice, but it's called The Shit Angel.
Shit Angel.
And basically it's a story about a guy who's super rich and he's bored and he's and he was telling it as if this had happened to his friend.
Okay.
So it was sort of like a secondhand retelling story.
Sure.
And basically his super rich bored friend started just going down this weird kink route. He found this prostitute who specialized, she had a super surprise, but wouldn't say what it is. So he got with her, they're having sex, and then next thing he knows, he's got a dildo way up his ass, deep inside. He's like, oh shit, what the hell just happened? And then they keep on going. She rips it out at some point, and as she rips it out, he just shits everywhere.
Diarrhea is absolutely
now I've already screwed it up, obviously, because the start of the story was she had plastic bed sheets, and he thought it was weird, or a thin plastic cover type thing. he goes to the bathroom and he's like, what the shit just happened? Like, he's high on cocaine and drugs and all this sort of stuff, and comes back and she's making an angel
Yep.
in his shit. Now, when he told her this was the funniest thing ever. Do I particularly believe this story? I'm not sure. But the story experience was so much fun, man. And, like, it still lives in my memory how funny it was, how we were all dying with laughter. And so I was like, you know what? Even if that's not true, the world's a better place for this story being told.
Well, but again, maybe there's another layer of the whole storytelling, because I'm just going to like fiction books. Like, fiction books are in essence fiction. They are not real. But a lot of the ones that I do like do have kernels of truth. So,
well, they can have like morals in them. They can have
which I guess are based on truth or known fundamentals. But I'm thinking of, say, the series Alex Rider. So one of the reasons I really liked Alex Rider, and I don't know if it was consciously or subconsciously, but what was the author's name? It was...
I'll look it up.
Look it up. So, but the author made a point that he would write the stories and he would actually go and check in. I think it's Anthony Horowitz. He would actually go in and check in with professionals of different areas of what the book was about to make sure that they were as close to life as possible. So, in one, he would actually go and talk to someone from like an aquarium and particular expert about jellyfish for the first story.
You're
Anthony
right.
Horowitz.
Yeah.
So he would go specifically talk to them to make sure that the lion's mane that was shown in the book and the finale was actually corresponding to reality. So there was definitely like true facts in the book. It wasn't complete fiction, but obviously the story itself and the people like that was all fictitious. But I think that made it for me all the better because it was based in some sort of reality. Not to say that stories that are completely fiction aren't also like great to read. I think they can be fantastic. Maybe the danger lies in fictitious storytelling that outright causes harm to other humans or other people that unduly shouldn't be noted. Maybe that would be maybe that's my line. That's the the line that crosses. What's the line from Solzhenitsyn? There's the line of
divides the
truth
line
and the good and evil between all men.
The line, it's like the line between good and evil divides the heart of every human, something like that.
Something like that, yeah. So that same line can go with that same line exists for all humans to tell a good story and a bad story, and that would be my line. If you tell a story that's unduly causing harm to another human from a fictitious sense, you've crossed my grey line. My grey line. That's the line.
One's coming for you.
That's the line.
Yeah, well, even in fictitious stories and fictitious universes, they need to follow rules and laws, and so you'll find that in these places they still have, it's like a stricture in certain cases. You can't, if it's implied that there's gravity there, you can't just break gravity's rules without an addition of some point or noting, they invented this anti-gravity device. So even in those cases, there's still, whilst fictitious and not real, there's reality like
that's
meta,
being based in.
There's rules and regulations, there's true things that are at the base of that, and you'll notice like if a series goes awry and it starts becoming shit and everyone hates it, it's because they broke their own laws and then they were doing weird things with their own stories.
Actually, so let's bring it into this, and then I don't know how much we'll delve into this, but let's just see. So someone posted a story today to Instagram, and it said they're Australian, and they're pretty prominent. And the story was basically in the essence of another article that they saw being posted, and that article said PCR tests for COVID, new ones to be introduced from 2022 because the previous ones couldn't differentiate between COVID and the flu.
Okay.
Right? Now,
kind
he
of a big
posted
problem.
That. So I was like, oh man, that's a pretty big problem. But he shared a post of another article. Now he was kind of asking, does anyone have any proof of this? Right? Now he posted a bit later, someone who actually replied to him and be like, no, that's false. And now I went to do a bit of a Google search myself. And it's not that I could tell outright that it was false, but I couldn't find something that clearly told me that was false. It was just like, there were some articles which said something happening halfway through the year that kind of advised that they had changed, but not for that reason either. So it was, there was some truth that were sort of conglomerated to form what you would maybe find like it should be the truth, but actually it wasn't. But obviously written in a way that you read the headline, you're like, it's the truth. Holy shit, go down that path. Now, what just went in through my mind is like, from a storytelling perspective, I think what you even just brought up, knowing what a true story is and what a false story is, you kind of need to know all the information at play. And one of the pieces of not hearing all the conversation, or for want of a better word, the whole cancel culture that we're seeing a little bit more of, if you don't follow the scheduled, media propagation of information ideas. So again, here would be the comparison of Robert Malone getting banned off Twitter because he posted something which didn't really follow what some of the larger COVID vaccine companies wanted to do,
WHO or something, whatever.
Because he didn't do that, they went and removed that particular information that he had for all his Twitter. So he didn't, everything that he posted on there, boop, see you later. Now, the bit about, them having the choice to do that, meh, whatever. Kind of like, that doesn't harm me. Obviously, it's harming them, so less than I care. The more and more I'm thinking is like, well, now let's say if someone actually posted something which was pretty untrue, right? Let's just say either about him or about something about his particular story. If I couldn't go and find anything else to prove to me that this was wrong, all of a sudden, that's the only truth. That is the only info that I can tell you that I can't actually prove to you that it's wrong. It's just, that's what it is. Do you find it at all a challenge, and this will be an interesting one for you because you don't consume much at all, do you find that to have entered into your stream of what you consume, whether it's media, videos, or anything, where you've come across someone that said something or story, and you've not been able to really prove if it's true or false, and actually not impacted, but made you stop and think like, this is a bit weird?
I think, honestly, it probably happens all the time, and I think you just got to get better at recognizing which places are good sources for truth. Is Twitter a random, maybe because, and you can get more nuanced, because you could say you followed this person on Twitter for, 12 years, and they have always pretty much consistently been on the ball, and when they've screwed up, they've even fessed up to screwing up. That, in those cases, you could sort of say, that's a really good source. But if it's just one random tweet from a random person, you should probably be careful of that.
Well,
honestly, I think I'm more of a live and let live type of person. If someone wants to put false information out there, I feel they should be able to, and that there's just enough mechanisms of humans interacting in the world that the truth will come out most of the time, sort of going along with my ideas of the stories. Most of the time people are going to be telling the truth. They might embellish it and whatnot, but in the most part humans are going to be doing the right thing. And so if there's FUD, if you're in the crypto world, if there's harmful misinformation in the medical world, if there's whatever, dangerous ideas in the idea world, I'm more along the lines of, even if it is untrue, that's okay, and even if it gets me once or twice, it's not going to ruin my life, sort of thing.
Yeah, look, and I think we're at a spot where, so for one, I probably consume a lot more of this media than you do, for one, so I'm probably seeing 100%. It more and more, right? Now, am I worried about it? Still not yet. I kind of go, maybe we can find a balance. My worry is, I don't think we're going towards a balance. I think we're going towards an even more unbalance. And it doesn't even matter which way the unbalance goes. More unbalance is just going to make it worse. So another comment I was going to say was something else I saw on Twitter about this whole Robert Malone, COVID, whatever. People went, Joe Rogan's podcast, basically the best news source there is right now across the world, right? Basically the best news source. Now, whether I believe that or not, who cares? But what it made me think was, all of a sudden now you're going to have more extreme views towards, I guess, the narrative, the stories that got told, and then everything that gets said there, all of a sudden is taken as gospel or truth. And again, you shouldn't do that. If something gets said on that Joe Rogan podcast or another one, like Lex Friedman or something else, sure, I take some truth for it and maybe think that there is background and legitimacy to it. But as you said, Elon Musk saying 5-10 years, someone definitely out there could be like, it's fucking happening in 5 years. Holy shit, he said it, it's happening. It's no, actually, there's other proof.
One confirmed.
Show. Yeah,
they'll hear this one and be like, oh shit, Juan said it.
But you know what I mean? But there could be other presentations of information, or the fact that Elon has said in the past, we're going to deliver this particular Tesla car or whatever, and it didn't happen. So it's yes, but you could also find information that disproves that, to kind of give you a bit of a balance. I think the more unbalanced we get of just going like, well, it's one or the other, no matter which way you want to look at it, it just puts our narrative in jeopardy. It almost goes towards all the way back to your storyline, terminology. Like, we're going to have no grayscale anymore. Like, it's just like, you either the full extreme truth or some extreme, like, lie that the other party think it's the opposite. You know what I mean? Like, it's either, let's say it's the truth in my eyes, and whatever you say is the 1% lie, or it's the opposite way around for you looking at it. It's like we've forgotten the grey bit that exists in storytelling, to the point that maybe perhaps, like, and I don't wish this to happen, but like, imagine like 50 years you tell a fictitious story, or a story from a kernel of truth that is expanded a little bit, and all of a sudden it's not seen with the grey, it's just seen like, oh, that's true or that's false. Like, there is no in between. Yeah. It's like, well, that'd be pretty shit. That'd be a shit experience.
Yeah. Well, my thoughts are always like, if you're complaining about this shit, why are you on Twitter? Why does it matter? And you could then make your argument that, but if it's the dominant narrative, and then they push these things and they can force whatever. But that's not, from what I can tell, I think it was, as long as 10% hold a contrary view, it's sort of almost impossible to really force things to go. So if let's just say Twitter started promoting flat Earth, and then it was 90% of the people believed that the Earth was flat, and there was still 10% holdout saying, no, it isn't. It's really still hard to change those 10% of people's mind and actually force them to behave as if the world was flat. Not that I think really changes anyone. My dad knows a couple of flat earthers, and it's like they're just normal people, to be honest. Like, it's not like they're weirdos in the. You can't like pick out a flat earther. There's how many people believe the flat Earth theory? I don't know. Maybe, let's just say 1 in 1,000. I've seen 1,000 people today.
Yeah, it's like, you're not going to point. I'd be like, oh, that's
that
you.
That guy right there. He's walking in a weird way. He might
continuously touching the ground and being like, see, it's flatter, buddy. Yeah, like, they're not going to be doing. They're not doing that. Not all of them.
It's like, why have you got that grappling hook with you? Just in case I find the edge. I'll just quickly whip it around and like throw it back up so I can get back up.
Yeah. So I think, I agree that get off it. I think if we experienced it directly, though, so again, let's say we're just talking about this particular story of Robert Malone, COVID, Joe Rogan, etc., etc., etc. I don't think we're really going to be impacted by saying that in this podcast. But on the way that things are going, I could see that in the future, say 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we might be impacted by saying that because it doesn't follow whatever platform we put it that follows the issue. Now, maybe there's a good little evolution of finishing off the podcast. But that is why we're value for value enabled. Like, that is the reason why we're value for value enabled. Just in the same way that a lot of other people went on to private Patreon accounts. Jocko Willing does his own sort of side channel on a sort of private feed. We've obviously got... How many podcasts are on value for value enabled channels now? Over 4,000?
Yeah, it's like 3,000 to 4,000, but I mean, it depends what you mean. How many people are doing it like us? Not many. But and how many people, and this is directly through the Bitcoin one. If you're including Patreon as a way of doing value,
then it's way bigger. Then it's multiply this by like 100 more.
Yeah.
But I think that's why aside from boost, if you're listening to this value for value enabled, I think that whole convention of just being able to be democratized to put out the information that you want, and then you got them choose whether you want to do it or not. Like, I don't care. It's there as an information source. You then choose to take in that story and decide whether it's in the truth or the grey with a kernel of truth or whatever else. Like, that's okay. But I could just see this unbalance, like, actually personally affecting us, or we're seeing it affect us when we just come up with something random we don't even think opposes a common view, but all of a sudden it does.
Yeah.
Like, maybe in like 20 years from now, we're still talking about Karen, approaching females or the like, and maybe at that time that's now considered like
illegal. Like
illegal, like genuinely illegal.
I think there are some places in the world where you can get in trouble for doing that. Probably even Australia, to be honest. Like what if a law?
Imagine if the unbalance became so that, let's just pick a random country, Italy, they were like banned that, they were completely, and not only did it get to the point that our podcast wasn't able to be streamed there because of particular information that we presented, which was like complete reality. Like, there's no, not even there's a kernel of truth, but then there's no extra exaggeration. That it's just truth. Then over the top of, like, you go to Italy and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, you're not allowed because, like, You did that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, that's probably an unbalance to just me acting as a human and participating in this from a learning experience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, that happens. It already happens in North Korea. Can't get, from what I can tell, you can't get podcasts in North Korea. It's not showing up on our stats, at least.
Damn.
And so...
it'd be good if we saw, like, one North Korea, one stream.
Holy fuck, how's this?
You know who would be watching, right? Kim.
Kim.
It'd be Kim. It'd be Kim watching, dude. It only would be Kim.
Yes.
So thank you very much to Kim for watching the show.
For sure. No, before we do finish up, there was one more thing I wanted to go over. So that those topics, and look, here's a perfect example of why it sort of almost doesn't matter in a way if people get banned off of places, because the 5/8 take. Robert Malone was on my friend Diogo. It's hard to say the bloody Portuguese name. Those mozzies getting you through your pants, man?
Dude, they're getting me through everything.
Damn, son. All right, well, I'll make this bit quicker then. Anyway, I actually tried listening to him on there, and I just found it super boring, so I fucking turned it off. So even though the truth is out there, you can still be like, oh, this is fucking boring. I don't care.
It's got to be told well.
That's it, man. That's it. All right. No, one thing I did want to go over was automatons. How much do you know about automatons?
I don't know it by name.
Okay, so an automaton is a relatively self-operating device. I believe that's sort of the half definition I got from it.
Okay.
And so basically, think of a robot.
Robot vacuum.
Yeah. So it can operate on its own relatively. You might need to initiate it. You might need to kick it off. You might need to give it some initial instructions. But then it can do some things which are pretty complex and sophisticated, and you're like, well, damn. And it doesn't have to just be a physical thing as well. It can be in the digital realm where it's, bytes and numbers and shit like that.
Yep.
So there was a couple of things I wanted to bring up, and I'll have them appearing on the screen. One is the Pierre Jaquet Droz automata.
What the fuck is
and
that?
So these were 3 doll machines that were built in 1768 to 1774. And it was by this dude who was basically a master clocksman. So him and his family, they had generations of people creating clocks, and this was in the time where it was, people getting these tiny little gears and the big telescopic glasses to be able to carve these things out to the minutiae and whatnot. And there's this video of one in particular, which is the rider. So there was 3. There was one a musician. And they were about big, probably a meter tall, maybe in total. One could play a little piano that it had in front of him. So you just turn it on, and it would move its fingers. It had the facial expressions, blinking eyes, and things like that. And it would play a piano. Another one was
250 years ago.
Yeah. The other one was a draftsman. So this was a guy who had a pen in his hand, and he'd draw a picture. I think it was of a cow, maybe, or it was of an animal, a 4-legged animal, and it would draw on paper this animal, and then it would finish. I think you then just wind it back up, put another piece of paper in there, could redo it. The most crazy one though is the rider, and so this is this little device where you turn it on, and it has a quill, I guess, in its hand, or like a feather pen, and it'll dip it in this oil well, shake off the drops, move it over, write a letter, move with its other hand the paper across a tiny enough space to then write the next letter, and it could write a full sentence essentially, and it would do this and continuously go back, get more ink for its pen, go back and be able to write a full letter. I'll show you the video after this because it is...
What I was just about to say is, so, one, is there proof of this?
Yeah, it's still alive. Like, they still have the actual doll in a museum. I'll bring it up now so you can see what it looks like. What was it? Jaquet automata. And
so one, that's amazing that exists and that was 250 years ago. 2, I was going to say, where is the proof that it was 250 years ago?
It would have been written in panels or like, in the dates of the... There'd be a way of dating this thing, essentially. And, yeah, try and skip forward. And one of the craziest things about this, though, is the complexity of the movements when you're watching it, but also that it was interchangeable as well. It was essentially a computer, because when you look at the gears at the back, it essentially knew the movement of the arm to make for the letter by the shape of the cog in the back in its sort of spinal column. And when it came across, so it would sort of, I think, basically revolve around a cog. Once it had finished that movement, slip down to the next cog and then revolve around that. And this was how it would know how to go from one letter to the next. The craziest thing was you could just put in different shaped cogs into these areas, and you could have it write different things. So you could essentially create a unique sentence based on each letter and just interchange them roughly. There's probably more complexities. Maybe you needed to add in different things to know when to put a space in and when to go down to the next line. But I was just blown away. My dad sent me this, and I was just blown away that someone could create this thing, 250 years ago. It still works, and it's essentially a computer, man. Like, it's just
that's crazy.
It's an unbelievable thing. And so there's an automata. If you've never seen the Stephen Wolfram automata as well, cellular automata as well.
Automata or automaton?
I think it's automata.
Okay.
But this one says automaton.
I did not know that existed in such a long time ago. That is unreal.
Yeah.
That is unreal.
Yeah. Crazy shit, man. And then the cellular automata that Stephen Wolfram's designed is essentially, he starts off with
Wolfram, is it from Wolfram?
Yeah, like Wolfram Alpha, that guy.
That dude's a genius. That dude is so smart.
Super, super smart. And basically what he does is, it'll start off with a cell, and then it can either be black or white, and then there's 2 cells beneath it, and then 3 cells, I believe, so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then just expands out like a pyramid shape. And the cells will have a real simple formula deciding what to do based on the cells above it. So if it's black or if it's white, behave in this function. And you can put these really simple functions in, but it will create these masterpieces of just complexity. So sort of think of the Mandelbrot set, which is just a real simple function, and it just creates these infinite complex spiral patterns, and the deeper you go in, new ones emerge that look similar to these old ones, but the pattern isn't never exactly the same. You can never... There's only certain areas of I guess, repeatability. So if you look at it and you click on this area, you can know, oh, okay, this will behave in this manner. But if you go just slightly to the left, it behaves in a super complex way, and you have no idea what's going to happen. Same thing with these, and it'll create these, spiraling effect pyramids going down, where it'll form these areas of order, and it'll form a thing where you're like, oh, okay, that looks like a pattern. I recognize that. But then on the other side, it'll just be going haywire, and you have no idea what's going on. Another good one is, I think it's called Langsom's Ant, where it's a very similar thing where it's an ant that when it comes upon a square, if it's white, it turns to the right. If it's black, it turns to the left. And if you put it in these certain conditions at the start, it can go into these weird patterns where it'll just keep going out, and you're never sure what the ant's going to do. And then it'll find this complex move of, I think it was 68 moves, where it would do this complex thing and then would just shoot off to the right and sort of go off into infinity doing this thing. So cool just knowing that there's like these weird things where a real simple formula, the complex, a simple formula, and it can create these complex patterns and just keep going on, and it's self-sufficient. It just does its own thing, sort of like this doll.
One thing, that doll is freaking incredible. I can't believe it was done that long ago. There is, if you are so inclined, because I don't know the full detail, but if you're ever so inclined to go and understand how complex something like a Tesla is, like the actual neural network that goes behind a Tesla, and what some of the equivalents are to that. Oh, yeah, I did see the back on that. Yeah, I did see the back on that thing.
And you can see the cogs as it gets put in. Yeah, sorry,
it's crazy.
Keep going.
So some of the neural networks, you would have heard it from Elon conversation with like Fabian.
I didn't get through all of it, to be honest.
So I haven't gone through that part.
Halfway.
But, yeah, so in particular, I'll just give you an example. That neural network is like again, so deep and so complex, we're not worth talking about it right now. But it even takes into account when and in artificial intelligence, this is super hard. Like in artificial intelligence, in the vision sense things, it like also takes into account when shapes go behind other shapes and you can't see them, and corroborates that with voices and stuff like that. So to the point of, they can tell as like or what they're trying to get it to do is like if it hears the ambulance, it can also tell it's an ambulance coming through and that it needs to move around and stuff like that. It is like literally mind-blowing when you start looking into it. Also to the fact that, and like rightly so, they're basically like their automation AI space or like particular department in Tesla is like they've just paid like the most intelligent people in the space of automation, artificial intelligence, to work at Tesla. Like they I don't know what much they're paying them, but I'm sure as hell I reckon they'd be paying them
money. Hit me up,
more
people.
than $500,000.
Want someone smart?
Yeah. These people would be like Wolfram style. Like I reckon each one of them would be that smart,
savant level,
and there would just be like the conversations there would just be absolutely.
It'd just be gibberish. You'd have no idea. If you're looking from the outside, you'd just go,
you'd be,
this isn't English. So, yeah. Another cool one is I was looking up keyloggers because I was just doing a little bit of like crypto safety stuff, and I was like, what are some of the ways where you can get undone? And one is your keylogging. So if you're putting your seed phrases into the internet, into your computer, and you're actually typing it in. And
how often have you put in your seed phrase?
Oh, never. Yeah, never. I don't think I've ever had to.
Yeah, I've never put in a seed phrase.
No, sorry, that's incorrect. I've done it once to test out the process of revitalizing a wallet and seeing, I had $10 in there. Oh, I put it into a new one. That $10 is still in there. That's pretty cool.
Okay. That's cool. Yep.
So, but even then, I didn't do that on my computer. And I've heard if you redo a seed phrase, the probably like best practice is to then move that money or that crypto instantly out into a new wallet, which you've never had to re-put in a seed phrase.
Yeah.
Because of key logging. So if someone gets that key log and then they see it. Mm-hmm. Now I was just looking at like, does key logging work if your Wi-Fi's off, for example? Does key logging work if et cetera, and it was telling of, okay, yes, it works if your Wi-Fi's off. It's just it'll send out the info to the people who put the malware in, the hackers, just when it turns back on. When it goes back. But the interesting one was they were saying, and there can be other ways they can do it as well. So they can do it via the microphone, so they can hear the tapping of the keys, and then be able to work out, just through reasoning of, just brute force algorithms of, okay, this letter gets tapped this many times. If you're typing a word that has the E and the A together close, you're going to hit those two keys in succession quicker than you would the Q and the Z, for example, or something like that. So, and then there's all these stories of similar things like that. The Russians doing that with I think it was fax machines in the American embassy back in the day, or maybe through the telegram sort of area where they just have the movement of the building or something like that to be able to reconstruct the voices, the conversations that were going on inside. So they wouldn't even need an electrical device. They could have some sort of string attached to a real amazingly complex amplifying device, so the vibrations would go up the string outside of the building, and then they could reconstruct from that. It's just like, well, you're fucked. You want to keep anything secret? Nah. If someone wants it, if they want it badly enough,
they're going to get it off you.
I would say if 100 people want something badly enough, you're screwed. Yeah, they're going to be able to get that from you. If they want it bad enough, there's no way you're going to be able to
stop them,
to keep it hidden to yourself. Probably even in the future, or maybe even right now, if they put a device on your brain while you're sleeping, they could reconstruct and give some prompting. They could reconstruct a word, your seed phrase that you had in your head that you remembered. Maybe they could
be stuffed completely,
reconstruct that by the electrical pulses or something.
Firewall in your brain.
In your own brain. Well, that's what the Neuralink, I guess, is for. Come on, Elon, hurry up, man.
Hurry up.
I want my privacy protected, my brain privacy.
Bring it on. Give me that chip.
Yeah, and that's it for today, man. That's
good.
That's my fun little things there. So We've already slightly mentioned the value for value, but yes, we are value for value enabled. So if you're listening to this via a podcasting app, I would suggest going onto one which has some of the better functionalities with it. So our value play here is you want some of the cooler aspects. You're going to find those on these apps where there's images popping up, for example, of the automata that I was talking about, some of the pictures and whatnot.
And
And
just makes the experience a little bit better.
yeah,
a little bit
for
better.
sure. And so that is a desire for us, for you to go onto those, because you get a better experience, and then you can help support us by boostergramming, by setting a select amount of satoshis to
Yeah,
go
by
per
streaming.
minute. How much
Exactly.
do you enjoy this podcast? Is it $10 an hour? Is it $1 a minute? Is it whatever it is? We appreciate every amount that comes in, and we have feedback functions. So
Exactly.
if you send a message to us, we'll read it out on the show. Thank you, support you. You can be part of the interactive experience that is the
Correct.
new models. So I would suggest going to those. Newpodcastapps.com is the place to find one of them. A good one is Fountain. I really like Fountain. That's
Fountain.
my main one of choice for the moment.
Good. Okay. Very good.
Want to lead us out, Wani?
All right, I'm Immortal Lads. That's all for now. One out.
Current out. Beep, boop, beep, beep, beep. Boop.